Turn the chair and sit on the chair.
Yeah, so your goals? Yeah, we're looking at your goals.
You want me to just sign them?
Yeah, that's actually, Rebecca signed her, but I put initials on it too.
Dates of 19.
Do you want me to date? Oh, that's an empty. It's got a flashlight on it, Gerald.
Should've got one.
I didn't get one that day, Boston J. No, I didn't. That's okay. I have a bunch of pens at home from work.
By the clock, call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Batcher.
Here.
Councilmember Coyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ford. Here. Councilmember Gibson.
There.
Councilmember Laporte. Here. Councilmember Saha.
Here.
Mayor Brazo.
Present.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comments on the agenda items? Public comments on the agenda items. Being none, we'll move to correspondence, which we had a letter from me and also a letter from Officer Spencer, Sergeant Spencer. Has everybody read those?
Yes,
And for you, those of you that they're in the packet, in the back, if you'd like to read them. Alright. Moving on to presentations.
I would like to make a motion to make public the letters from the attorney regarding the open, meeting act violation and, the letter regarding prohibited acts of council and employees.
Support that. So we have a motion and support, to make the public letters from the attorney regarding the OMA violation and letter regarding prohibited acts of council and employees. Roll call vote?
Councilmember Saha.
Yes.
Councilmember Laporte.
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Coyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
Mayor Brazo.
Yes. All right, presentation. Mr. Shepherd.
I guess I'm up. Good evening. I know some of you from outside of this room, but most of you I don't know. I've been acting as your city attorney for the past year or two. I appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight, and it's not my purpose tonight to come and castigate anybody or to try to make them feel bad or put them into the doghouse. It's actually my purpose to try to save you money and give you some of the explanations as to some of the letters I've been asked to review. First and foremost was the request of what is the authority for council members vis-a-vis the mayor, vis-a-vis the manager, and the employees. As a general rule, you have the management form of government, which means you hire a chief executive officer, who in this case is Ms. Hoder. You have an elected mayor who acts more as a figurehead and a ceremonial mayor and is a member of council, but he is only one vote. A majority of the council directs the manager on how to run the city. And if you're dissatisfied with the way the city's run, and the same with the attorney, if you're dissatisfied with the attorney's services, you replace them. But you don't have the authority, and that's where we get to looking at the charter, section 6, or article 6 of the charter delineates the mayor's duties. He serves on all committees, he gets to vote when he's at council, he gets to act just like the rest of you. He, apparently, based upon the charter, can make motions, can second motions, or can do whatever any of the rest of you can do. The only difference is, from a parliamentary procedure standpoint, the chairperson of the meeting is supposed to let others bring up the motions first. So if there's a deadlock or something, he can make the motion for purposes of having a vote or having a finalization to it. Article 7 then details the manager's qualifications, responsibilities, and the appointment of various other officers, including the clerk, treasurer, assessor, and attorney. The big item in the charter that is trying to be avoided is the Article 18.5, which talks of interference with administration. And this is directed to council so that each of you individually know that the charter says, no member of the council shall direct the activities of a city employee except through the voice of the council and or through the city manager. So that being said, simply put, you still control the city, but it has to be done in this room through a majority vote to tell people what you want to do. None of you as elected officials has a Superman cape that enables you or allows you to go out and direct the other employees. You can talk with the manager and ask the manager, but a directive needs to come from the entire council by vote. The unfortunate part of this section of your charter is that the penalty makes it a misdemeanor if you violate the section attempting to direct employees in their day-to-day activities or otherwise. And if you are charged with a misdemeanor, and if you are convicted with a misdemeanor, then your office is declared vacant, and there needs to be an appointment to fill your position. That's, again, not a threat, not a punishment in any fashion, just simply the way your city has designed itself to work, that you as elected officials work in here, appoint the manager or the other administrative officers to do their job, and then direct the manager on how you would like them done if you would like them done differently. Similarly, the Open Meetings Act, there was, I know, an article in the paper not too long ago, and there had been some discussion about 4 council members being in a committee meeting. I did not find that to be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And the reason I did not find it to be a violation is that I am informed by your clerk that every committee meeting is published and noticed, and there are exceptions to the Open Meetings Act that will allow for a chance meeting. And in fact, the Open Meetings Act says you as a community or as a council cannot remove people from an open meeting unless they're being disruptive. So if you have a committee of 3 people who are council members who are going to come and talk about whether the moon is made out of green cheese or any other thing, if you all show up, it has become a council meeting. So it always has to be noticed out as a council meeting, and if it becomes a council meeting, you have to allow public input as if you're at a council meeting. The suggestion that I make is that if you're going to allow committees to function, you try to let it be the committee of less than a quorum of council members. If you have a particular point of interest, it might be better to convey a memorandum to whoever's on the committee, not trying to discuss or deliberate out of the presence of the media, because government works in a fishbowl, and you all have to recognize that everything you do is subject to review and criticism, and we don't want the city, and I put in the letter that there are certain criminal sanctions that may be faced by council members for violating the Open Meetings Act. There are certainly civil sanctions or fines that you could face for violating the Open Meeting Act. And there are certainly expenses of the attorney that you would incur through the council, through the city, if we had to defend an open meeting act violation. So, always wanna make sure that everything is properly noticed, published, given to the newspaper, give the public the adequate opportunity to come, but please try to stay away from making the quorum. And the only reason I say that is because if 4 or 5 of you are at the same committee meeting, it gives the appearance of inappropriate behavior. It gives the appearance that you might be actually deliberating, discussing, or deciding on an issue. And you're not supposed to do that but for this meeting with the entirety of the board present. So that is just a word of encouragement and caution, trying to avoid the lawsuits that might come from either the newspaper, television, or radio station. But I know in investigating it, since they're all public records and all public meetings and all open to the public, we shouldn't be subjected to that. I don't think the prosecutor will ever attempt to levy any charges, but I want you to all be mindful of it so that we don't incur unnecessary costs throughout the city. Any questions on those 2 items?
Questions?
Say if there was a fine being brought, does it go to the person that created that crime, or does it go to the whole panel?
It goes as to all of the people that resulted in the violation. So, if from here, as this is a stupid example, but if from here 4 of you went to the bar someplace, the 4 of you that went to the bar and continued to discuss about city business and deliberate about city business and came to decisions about city business, excluding from your discussion, deliberation, and decision-making, the public and the other members of the council, the 4 of you would be paying the fine, not the entire. And I don't mean that you're going to do that, I just.
No, I was just.
Right. Anything else?
So then how, like, during Cheesetown Parade, we get together for the parade and, there's other various events?
Well,
That's
and
separate
that's
from
that's
that?
one of the exclusions and exceptions to the Open Meeting Act. You can have a chance encounter with all 7 of you there, or you can have the social encounter, so long as you don't take up city business. As long as you don't do a discussion, deliberation, or decision-making. There are even cases in the Supreme Court where people have tried to circumvent the quorum and the Open Meetings Act by doing a circular email. If you emailed the next 2 members and one of them emailed the next 2 members and then one of them emailed the last 2 members, that's considered a violation because you can't go and break into small groups and then have the discussion and exchange all of the information together within the small groups. But you certainly can all go to the parade together, you can all go to the festivals together, you can all go to the same church. And they can't, as long as you don't talk city business, you're completely protected from your own social activity.
I just have another question, Mr. Shepherd. Our charter, we've been trying to go through and get a good representation of the organizationally of the city, with the current mix of departments and what is required by charter. So there's different offices in that are vacated at this point, that have not been assigned by this council and past councils. So to do that proper representation, the charter is the Bible, correct?
The charter is
Under
the
the
framework that you
Home
live
Rule
with.
City Act.
Right.
Right. So when it says the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city, that makes that position, creating that title, but understanding that we have a manager's form of government, which we hire a city manager to carry out the routine duties, operationally, more of a operational manager, COO manager versus CEO manager for the city. So I guess that's where some of the confusion lies too.
Well, and actually looking at I believe it's Article 6 with the mayor.
Correct.
The mayor shall preside at all meetings, shall appoint council committees, except as otherwise provided, shall be an ex-official member of each committee without a vote, shall be a member of council for all purposes. So that's where he is the presiding officer over you. The next one is public duties. He shall perform all the ceremonial duties as any other elected mayor. Then he has to authenticate documents. He has limitation of powers, and he only has the powers as enumerated in the charter. And then he may countersign all checks for the payment, and that's it. It doesn't say the mayor is responsible for the day-to-day operation of
No,
the city.
I'm just referring to section 6.2.
The public duties?
Yeah.
Sure.
The mayor shall be the chief executive officer of the city.
And as I read that in the context of the entire charter, and not to be argumentative, but if you need to have a mayor exchange day, or if you need to have somebody lead the parade, he is the chief executive officer to lead the parade, but he doesn't necessarily go down into the factory and make the cheese or make the car or anything like that. He is the figurehead of the city, and he has all the responsibilities to manage the meeting in here. And it's probably a bad choice of words in the charter, and the charter's probably older than most of you and maybe me. But instead of calling him the chief executive officer, he probably is more realistically the chief public relations officer, and the manager should be the actual. But that's a whole nother story about doing a charter commission and trying to revise your charter. I don't know how long it's been, since 1968, so I guess it was around then, but certainly wasn't a lawyer and wasn't out of high school.
Yeah, so just to, update our organizational chart for the city, and then we should remove consideration for that title according to the charter, and just include the city council and mayor in the, organizational box at this point.
If you have an organizational chart, you should try to follow the charter as clearly and nearly as possible. But if you have unfilled seats, you can, as council, choose not to fill those seats. But the chief executive officer versus the chief operational officer, it's probably semantics. He really does not manage the day-to-day affairs, which I always thought a CEO did, is have the overall comprehensive management authority.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I will now punch off your clock and wish you all a good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I compliment you on making this a public discussion, because that's part of the whole Open Meetings Act, is the public needs to know that you're not doing anything behind your back.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you.
Richard.
Thanks.
Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I will make a motion, to the approval of the consent agenda, please.
No support.
We have a motion and support for the approval of the consent agenda. Do we have any discussion? Do not. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We approve the consent agenda. Committee report. City manager.
Okay, so you have my report in your packet. The city is planning, I'm not sure you're aware, but we are required by the state annually to exercise at least 1/3 of our water valves yearly. So that way, within a 3-year period, all water valves are exercised. We are currently in the process of doing that. There have been about 4, I believe, that have been found to either be leaking or not able to be shut off. As you may be aware, we did one over on 5th Street that we really need to do because last winter, over the winter, when we had that frozen line on Jennings, we were not able to shut that off. So that was repaired. The gentlemen are preparing to do another one on Water Street on Wednesday. We will notify the businesses. I meant to today, but the day got away. So tomorrow I will be contacting the people that should be affected with that, businesses and residents, so that they're aware of it before we do that, so they can gather water and necessities. So that is an ongoing process that we're dealing with. Also, we, at the last 2% giveaway from the tribe, we received money for DPW, one in the amount of 5,000, one in the amount of a little over 6,000. Pat went and picked up the enclosed trailer that the tribe provided us in the grant of 5,000. So that is here, and there's going to be additional work. We'll have to get it lined and everything, because it will be used for water, and they're constructed of wood. So there's going to be some prep work on that, but that'll make it handy for like last winter when we were out there in sub-zero temperatures fixing the line on Jennings. We can roll out that trailer, have all the necessary equipment, so that we're not making multiple trips back for pumps and generators and lighting or whatever we would need. Also, it will help to serve as a warming unit during the winter. We can put a heater in there so the guys can get in out of the weather a little bit every so often. In the summer, get out of the rain, whatever. So it'll be a multi-purpose utility vehicle. And also the other aspect was that we, as you may or may not know, do not have proper safety equipment. We have barricades and that, but they're just painted orange. There's no reflectiveness on them. The state also has changed mandates on the stop signs and the railroad crossings and that, and I'm sure you've probably seen this in other communities where they now have the red or white strip down the post so that they're reflective at night. So we've ordered that. We've ordered new stop signs, new parking, things like that, as well as barrels with reflective lights or reflective coating, and additional lights to put on so at night that there's the blinking light so it's more pronounced. We've done the barricades, we've done cones, so we should be well stocked now for any emergency that we would come across. Is there anything I forgot, Yvonne? She keeps me on track.
Hey, Yvonne, could you do me a favor though?
Mhm.
Could you go over the dangerous hearing qualifications here too that we
Oh,
got? And
yes.
I don't know if everybody looked at it.
So
I think it's very important that we
yes.
go over and get something done on that one.
Thank you. So as you're aware, we tried to do a meeting on the dangerous buildings. The owner, and as you probably heard, Brian and I, we had different. I always refer to the building over here on the corner of Water and 3rd Street as Doc Smelters, because Doc was there, and Brian has a different, but you know, it just depends where we came into. But as you know, that building collapsed in the rear. We sent out notification to the owner. Al came and condemned the building. We sent notification to the owner, gave him a certain amount of time to respond. He has not responded. And the next step was to take it in front of our dangerous building for the hearing officer, which we did not have in place. So along with Jason and Rich, who has left, they work in conjunction and with Al Hugo. You have it in there, his qualifications. He also serves Pinconning Township, Hampton Township, Essexville, and he emailed over a list of references and his qualifications that I put into your packets.
And just to let y'all know, it's very hard to find a hearings officer. We looked
Yes.
very diligently and asked a lot of people, and you know, I'd like to get something done with this tonight if possible, because I think we'd like to move forward. I think some of the residents would like us to get moving forward.
Exactly.
So
I would say easily we probably have half a dozen buildings that need to be addressed in the city. We need to start taking action if we want to keep the city looking and safe.
Have we had this position before?
No, we introduced this ordinance year and a half ago.
When we voted it.
Shortly after I came, shortly after council appointed me as city manager, we reached out and to the township. They graciously allowed us to copy their dangerous ordinance, so that way we wouldn't have to pay to have it reproduced. So.
Are you asking to make a recommendation for the visit?
Yes, I'm asking council to entertain a motion to bring Al on so that we can start proceeding with this, so we can get things taken care of.
I'd make that motion to appoint Al Hugo as a title again, dangerous
Hearing officer.
dangerous hearing officer for the city of Pinconning immediately.
And I would,
Okay, so we have a motion and support to make Al Hugo the dangerous buildings officer for the city of Pinconning. Any discussion?
I like that, it's time to get it
No
going.
discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Laporte. Yes. Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor,
Yes.
Mayor Brazo.
Yes,
Also,
so we passed the motion to make,
sorry.
Al Hugo dangerous building officer of the city of Pinconning.
Also in your packet, it was a late addition, on Friday, Jaeger Construction or Paving brought in a quote to me for those streets that I gave you at last meeting. That price is in front of you. At first, they gave me a price for all of them, and I said I need it broke down, so they broke it down for us there. I need to caution you, they said that price would change that's listed there if we're only doing like 1 or 2 streets. That was a price break if we were looking at all of that. So, and I believe at our audit presentation in December, the auditor said we had about 150,000 in streets that we could do.
And that's what do we get about average yearly, isn't it? Somewhere around there, 100?
About 100, yeah, I believe it's 80 for the major and then 40, I believe, for local. You're right, and it's in your revenue expenditure too, what we budget, so.
So without special assessment, you were to assess the worst streets there and ask council to approve that?
Yes, and if you wanted, I would say right now, definitely 4th Street, that's only 2 blocks from 13 to Arthur. That is really bad. Personally, I guess the other one would be 7th Street. Those would be the 2 I would look at first, but I respect difference of opinion. If you think there's other ones that are worse, I would entertain that.
I think Manitou between here and the city garage is bad because a lot of city trucks are up and down that road. It's nothing but a dirt road and there's so much dust and you can't even open windows. And that's actually the lowest one on there.
You had mentioned too, Columbia Court, there was talk
I-
out there, the residents coming together.
I don't know about residents, last year when we were out getting the pricing too, Marty Hornacek said he would be open to contribution.
Other than the street funds we get for the 2 streets, is there grants out there that we can look at from the state that will help? Or some kind of help from the state?
I'm sure there is. And as you were at the meeting the luncheon that the township hosted, when Mr. Lilo was there. Again, if we're able to schedule around a time that the county would be here, we could maybe piggyback and get a little bit of price break, because they would already be in the area to do work. So there's the capability of piggybacking off of some of the county road work. And I'm not necessarily asking for a decision tonight, I just wanted to present you with that information, because it was late getting to you, you haven't had time, I know, to look really in depth or discuss it, so. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
So all these specs were just, remilling projects?
Mm-hmm, correct.
If, the grant we're looking at to update the water and sewer lines throughout the city, would it be?
Well, and that's
Potentially wait till
a valid point also, because again, if you're going to do this and do it properly, you'd want to look at your infrastructure underneath those streets, because you don't want to lay New Street down and then
Dig it back
Like
up.
Yeah.
City Street, yeah.
right. And you know, again, you're dealing with old infrastructure, and I just want to say, even if we, you know, we can talk with Dependable Sewer, look at what they've cameraed so far and see the condition and that, and it may be an okay or whatever condition. Just remember too, you're bringing heavy equipment over that and you're pushing ground, so sometimes there's issues after the fact that you couldn't see ahead of time. I'm not saying it's real likely, but I mean, just keep in mind that there's always that unknown. But granted,
Place in Vanderbrink got back with you on the meeting we attended?
they tried to set up a meeting with us for tomorrow, I'm sorry, and they were in today, and that wasn't gonna work out, so they're doing Wednesday. So tentatively Wednesday, we'll be meeting with Fleece and Vanderbrink.
So they may have a timeline for you for the grant application.
So when we get that, we can have a sit down, or we should have a vote of what roads we should do
Right.
first, and then work
right.
through the years, so we have a plan in action already.
Right, and as you have talked about with us and Brian and in discussions, you know, on things, the city really should look at roads and have like a 5-year plan, what roads, because that 5-year plan drives your budget process. If you know what you want to accomplish in 5 years, it's easier to budget than just to budget in the dark.
And it's also easier to get a contractor.
Contractor,
that knows that they're gonna have work.
grants, you know what you're looking at.
Yeah. So keep that in everybody's mind when they're.
And feel free to, you know, give me your input on what roads. I know we just had a discussion, it's not directing me, you're giving me your input, what condition you see on roads and what you think may need. Again, it's just sharing of information, that way we can record it all down and bring it back for that 5-year plan. Because remember, I take my direction from all of you.
Does anybody else have any questions for our city manager?
I do. You said that this price would be for all of these roads to be done, but if we only choose to do a couple roads this year, that might be making like 7th Street, it might make it go up
Correct.
thousands of dollars more, so we basically gotta do all of them.
Independently. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would have to go back to the drawing board and ask them for another quote on just doing like the 2 roads this year.
Okay.
But what you're gonna incur is the setup fees for stuff. Any other questions? Being none, we'll move on to city services.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Alright.
I just had one question with Don on that, the pump station motor updates, are they coming, it was supposed to be end of this month, 1st of September?
So that was 10 stopped in today. They were doing that today, and as they were putting those in and doing maintenance on the others, he came and asked me how much money we had. Because it looks like we have 2 more pumps that are having issues. I will know more after our meeting with them. So, and then also, as I started to raise my hand, I just need to let you know too that it was the hope of that grant, the SAW grant, to put a new roof on the wastewater building, cause that roof is from when the plant was built. It's starting to leak in areas, and there is not enough money left in the SAW grant because of other unforeseen things that have cropped up. So we may look at having to put a roof on, if not this year, definitely in the spring, cause it is an issue.
The main building or
The main building,
Okay.
the big one,
Well, I know that there was roof problems on the farthest.
oh, the digester,
Yeah.
or not the digester, I'm sorry, the UV
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
But again, I just want that in your mind, so I'm not blindsiding you if something drastically changes.
All right, any other questions? Okay. City services were, finance and personnel, Chairperson Saha.
Yes, we had a meeting on the, 30th of July. Topic of the items, we reviewed the pilot proposal by DeChano Builders for their building on North Street, doing the renovations there. They are requesting a pilot from the city, payment in lieu of taxes, to help the renovations, to be financed. They're requesting a 16-year payment in lieu of taxes versus the traditional way of paying property taxes or applying for an abatement. And it's about a $1.5 million project of renovation there. So we're working through that. We have a few more other questions that we referred back to Heather, representative from DeChano Builders, to get back with us in the next month. They need an answer by October 1st, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to deal with this at the next council meeting. So there's a few things to go through there, and hopefully we can come up with a sound recommendation to council. Other items, we were looking at goals for the city. Each fiscal year, we had a short discussion on that, and the mayor also wanted us to bring some ideas to council for this meeting. We looked at updating the organizational chart for the city, and had a discussion about that. Also, a couple vacancies according to our city charter that are required to have an appointment, that being the superintendent of public works and superintendent of public safety. And discussion followed there. I think we had a recommendation to appoint the city manager to those positions at this point, just to fill those positions at this point until there's a way to fund those.
We discussed it, but there was never no motion.
No, I said
Right.
discussion.
Just discuss.
Okay.
We also discussed 2019-20 updates, budget updates, any ideas to improve our bottom line. Most of the costs are fixed, as you all know. The only way we can get a better picture of the city is trying to create more revenue streams for the city, and that's a hard thing to do. So we're looking at different things we could do. In the discussion, what does the city have to offer? Well, you know, the sewer services we have here are under capacity, and trying to market those services outside the city is one idea. Don also brought up, we have some excess city property, you know, to look at putting those properties on the market. So just working through those ideas to discuss and allow the administration to you know, get some information, make some recommendations to council on that. The other policy we talked about is the a ready to serve abatement, request of a resident here in town. We didn't come to any conclusions again on that, but just a discussion, and, trying to come up with a solution there based on a recommendation of the city manager. Other discussions we had were, the animal situation we have here in the city that's been presented to us. The insurance, the recommendations the insurance, company gave us if we were to establish a policy on that. We also talked about the, treasurer's position and trying to see if we could, create, a separate treasurer's position is based on the recommendations of the audit, just separating those, dual, one person filling the, positions there is not a good position to be in, but, with the budget constraints we have right now, Dawn fills both those positions. So, we discussed with Dawn see if she come up with some recommendations there, once again, to see if, what we could do to, create that separate position at that point, filling with another person. So hopefully we can get some, more information on that and to, bring some recommendations to council. And on the individual side, once again, I would, we also talked about the social media policy in depth. Didn't come to any conclusions, but I'm at a point, with what's been going on with the city and social posting, that the current policy we have, which is dated July 16th of 2018, is basically out of date at this point. It's just a policy of what you should do, and it has no, authority lines of who's responsible for what, and clearinghouse of posts should go through the administration for approval, and it has no, teeth to it, basically. Who's, if there's a post that we don't, authorize, or they may offend the city, or not the policies of the city, there's no recourse to, discipline our employees on this matter. I have researched this up and down through the Michigan Municipal League, other cities' policies. There's a whole range of different policies out there for use, and I have drafted a policy which I'd like to introduce to this council. And since we discussed it, nothing ever happens with it. But I would like to present this policy and introduce it. The draft policy, media, social networking, and traditional public communication policy, copy dated 7/31 of 2019, and recommend the vote should be to approve the forwarding of the draft revised social media policy for review by the city attorney. Once the city attorney reviews it and any language is revised, etc., then the presented final will present a final draft as reviewed and revised by the city attorney, to go to council at our next meeting to have to vote on its approval or disapproval, and just continue in limbo with this thing. So, and that is my personal motion out there.
That was a motion?
Yes. I motion to introduce this draft policy.
As a personal motion.
I just want to clarify, is the way I'm taking it. So Brian would like to introduce the motion to, consideration, but with sending it to the attorney.
Right.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that you're approving to send it to the attorney. Oh, you're fine.
Correct.
Does that draft include all city employees, not just council and mayor?
All city employees.
Okay.
And council on that.
And council.
Yes, all of us, okay.
This is the draft policy. There's some extra copies there for the audience if they want.
Can we get these on now? Please, do you have one? Thank you, thank you.
No, he's got one, that's fine.
So Brian, is this for city websites or city and personal that you're introducing?
There is some language in there for, and that's where, of course, the attorney to review all this. So, once again, clarification on the legal side is gonna be, included in this policy. So that's, it includes both to a point, it includes the city website, city sites for sure, and then,
Okay, yep.
from a communication standpoint of personal sites, it, states that, administration may result, if it defames the city in any way, it may result in, disciplinary action as outlined in this policy itself also.
Who would be, I'm sorry, who would be responsible to decide what's defamation?
The definition comes, in my opinion anyway, comes from the city council with the input from the city attorney. And the responsible person for clearinghouse for all posts is our administration, city manager, not the council.
Business-wise, not personal.
Not personal.
Correct.
So since you said all employees of the city, that includes the police department as well?
Correct, we're employees.
Thank you.
And so Don would determine
Correct.
what's appropriate.
Correct.
The council would have.
City manager would approve all postings.
Even on their, not on their personal,
No.
What, so, then would that also, again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying, I just wanna make sure we're clarifying and we're all on the same page. Would that then apply to the DDA's website and Facebook?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanna make sure what I'm supposed to,
And so how would we determine personal? I'm sure it's in.
Well, how you determine personal, if something comes up there that, misrepresents the city of Pinconning, that is brought to attention by a complaint
Okay,
to council,
okay,
such as what happened to us.
right, right,
And that complaint would have to be dealt with on the council level,
okay.
referred to our city attorney. And if there is a decision or recommendation by city attorney to bring back to council that we can go after this person civilly, then you go after that person. If still, once again, if the council decides to do so, because there is a cost involved,
Right,
obviously.
right.
Well, we already signed social media contracts a couple years ago regarding nothing be on their personal page regarding the city whatsoever before. So it wasn't meant for a personal page, because we can't do that anyway.
Well, let's do this. Okay, we have, so you made a motion.
I made a motion.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so, Don, can I need to read your motion, I apologize. Okay, so there was a motion to introduce the draft policy, multimedia, social networking, and traditional public communication policy, copy dated 7/31/19, and recommended that the vote should be to be approved of forwarding the draft revised. So this motion is to revise the draft social media policy for review by the city's attorney. Once the attorney reviews it and any language is revised, then present the final draft as reviewed and revised by the city's attorney to council for a vote and approval. Okay, so this is just sending, so we have a second
this is just sending it to,
to our attorney.
Right.
Now we can have discussion. Okay, now we do our discussion on this. Is there any more discussion on this? I mean,
You know, I don't know, like, when it comes to my own personal media, I mean, you do have the freedom of speech.
I don't know what would be upheld in it or not by the lawyer, but, I mean, that's something we can all,
That's for the lawyer to review.
okay.
But then if you have freedom of speech, then why was the last issue approximately, what was that, a year and a half ago, where things were said by council members and it came back as a violation? That's when we all signed the social media contract. Because that should have been our freedom of speech. And it was not.
Alright, any more discussion? Roll call
Councilmember Ford,
And this is to send it to the lawyer.
Yes, to the lawyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Laporte,
Yes.
Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor,
Yes.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Mayor Brazel.
vote. No. And the motion to introduce the draft policy, multimedia, social networking, and traditional public communication policy, copy dated 7/31/19, and recommended that the vote should be to approve the forwarding of the draft revised social media policy for review by the city's attorney. Once the attorney reviews it, and any language is revised, etc., then present the final draft as reviewed and revised by the city's attorney to council for a vote on approval has been passed.
Lastly, in personnel and finance, once again, I would like to make a motion to appoint the city manager to the position Superintendent of Public Works, Superintendent of Public Safety.
I'll support.
According to our charter requirements.
Okay, so we have a motion to make our city manager the superintendent of public works and the superintendent of public safety. We have some motion and support. Discussion.
But is there some,
Now, our lawyer, I'm just gonna tell you, our lawyer said we don't have to do those. We can also vote not to have those positions.
yes.
So that's just a thought too. And the reason I'm gonna tell you guys all this, my feeling is, how many position heads are you gonna put the city manager at, and are we putting her in a position of failure? And that's just just my thought right now. I mean, how many positions are we gonna have her have? And where do we go from there?
I mean, she's got a full load as it is.
That's my thought. Any more, do you have any discussions?
Well, at this point, the city manager is doing those positions.
Okay, I'm just throwing it out there though.
But is there something that you cannot access?
So,
I mean, I
in
don't know.
transparency, I would like to ask Sergeant Spencer to kind of talk on this, because yes, right now, in day-to-day, I do kind of oversee this, but I'm not legally bound, per se, to look over those. Sergeant Spencer knows there's a lien system. I am not trained, I'm not certified where I could get on and do that. I don't know necessarily day-to-day laws and how to like tell them what they can and can't do. Yes, I'm a figurehead and I kind of try to, I dictate, maybe dictate's not the right word, but I suggest the schedule that I want them to do based on what I've heard from council. I do listen, you want them at certain events, you want, them out on the street, things like that. So I do advise them in those capacities. And I shared this at finance and personnel. I'm just leery I don't want to put the city in jeopardy. Do you understand what I mean? I don't know what I don't know until I don't know it. It's like, I'm not aware of everything. There might be things I miss. I don't know. What are some things that you see that I wouldn't be able to do if I was?
We can solve this issue really well. First, you need to get a 2-year associate's degree in criminal justice, go to the police academy, and then you go to the chief's school, it's down in Lansing. That'll tell you everything you need to know about being a chief of police. This is what I would say. And I have all due respect for the city manager, and she knows that. We've talked about this many times. She's expressed to me that she didn't want the position because she has a lot of titles, has been said already. If you want her to be the chief of police, or however you want to articulate that, that's fine. We're gonna have to sit down, we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff. There's things that she can't access. She can't get in our report writing system, she can't do the lien work, she's not privy to reports, she can't, there's a whole lot of stuff that if you come up to me right now, Mr. Mayor, and you say, hey, I wanna see this, no, can't do that. There's a division between that only a certified officer can do. I think personally that you clearly must want her to fail if you wanna put another title on her head. And not to get into the other stuff, but
I just want to, I don't know, I just want you to be aware of what you're stepping into also. You know, there are times that chief would have to go to hearings and to the prosecutor, and there's chief meet. I don't know that I'd be qualified, or if as director of public safety, if I would be called upon to fill those. And I understand what Brian was saying, that, you know, I would be the figurehead and Sergeant Spencer, and I apologize, I did forget to bring the attorney's opinion on that, and I did say I would. But according to the attorney, when we asked his counsel, it was that we would then create a what was the attorney, Brian, what his wording was, that like a superintendent position to handle those other aspects. So again, then I don't know if Sergeant Spencer would do that. I'm sorry?
Supervisor.
I will kindly turn that down.
But, so, I mean, there's a lot of different, and I'm not trying to create problems, there's just a lot of different ramifications that you all need to consider before you go through.
Thank you. Roll call vote? Roll call vote on the motion to make our city manager the superintendent of public works and the superintendent.
And I just want to clarify, it's not just for public safety either. Director of Public Works, again, I wouldn't know, the question came today, what piping, when they're running new pipe to a home. Again, I do rely on Pat, he tells me, but it's the same thing, I guess, you know. I don't have that expertise in those fields. And I understand we're a small city and we have to wear many hats. I just don't want to jeopardize the city.
Well, just one other point, but superintendent means more or less the managers of those departments. Public safety includes fire, ambulance, public works includes the DPW department and others.
Right.
With scheduling and stuff like that, and the management duty, you're doing that already. I'm not talking about accessing the lien system or that recommendation. That still has to follow to those that are certified to do those things and learn about piping and all that stuff. It's just, you know, the charter says this. Once again, the attorney just brought up something tonight different than what we heard for years. Okay, so
That's probably why they didn't.
in the recommendation we did receive legally, I go by what the attorney told us a month and a half ago.
Right.
You know, which is different than what you may have said tonight. So
Right, in that letter, he did say that you could make me the director of both of those, but.
I just want to bring that up to council.
Right.
This is a manager's position. It's not doing certified things like Officer Spencer said. Those things can be assigned to those that are certified to do it.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Laporte,
Yes.
Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor,
No.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ford,
No.
Mayor Brazo.
No. And the motion passes that our city manager will become the superintendent of public works and the superintendent of public safety.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I can't stand it anymore.
Any more?
No. Okay.
Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation.
Did you want to do D?
Oh, public safety, I'm sorry.
Yeah, skip.
I'm sorry, public safety. We were just talking about public safety, sorry.
Any questions?
Sorry, I'm
Okay. Just a quick update, I did talk to Chief Ramsey, over the weekend, and, we signed up we're in the process of getting our medical first responder stuff all situated. And just so we're at clear understanding, and just to kind of touch base on the letter that I sent you, and I guess you kind of took care of that. But when the city manager. Yeah. I'm gonna have to sit down and talk with the city manager about what we're gonna do. I am not going to be a token position in this department. There's a lot of stuff that I've done over here in the last 8 months. I was acting chief last time when Tober left for 6 months. We didn't have one issue. Things continued on rather well. I knew the day that he left that they were gonna hire him back part-time. The current mayor at that time wanted me to take the position, and I refused it because I knew they told him he was gonna come back. If you don't wanna give me that position, I'm okay with that. I'm gonna show her what she needs to do, and I'm gonna turn in my resignation as a sergeant, not as a patrol officer. I'm gonna go back to being a patrol officer. I'm gonna do my patrol officer duties. It's lined out. I'm not gonna do this administration token bit because you don't wanna pay me to do it, or you don't like me, or whatever the case is. I've done it for 8 months, I've done it great, and you can't have a discussion with me and tell me anybody that's done more in this department in the last decade that I've been here, because everything that's been done the last decade has been on my back. And that's no disrespect to Chief Tober, because he ran the department. So that's fine, we'll have that conversation, we'll figure it out, so, any questions?
Thank you, Sergeant.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify, because Chief Ramsey and I talked, he said that it was advisable for our officers if they were still willing to do the medical responder, because they do carry the AED and everything in their car. So if they're first on the scene, it is best to have them trained also as a first responder. So whether they are on the fire department or not, they still need that training.
Yeah.
I thought that was the most important part anyways.
Yeah, and that AED is something that I went and got, our place didn't pay for that, just so y'all know. And I wanna mention something else, probably a good choice, because obviously I was foolish to even apply for that position, because I said no wage increase, no benefits increase, no vacation increase, nothing else, cause who would wanna do this job for nothing more than what you have today? As another note, I'm gonna request this to the city manager. The last 8 months that I've been the acting chief, I've been getting paid 2 days a week for chief duties. When the chief was gone before, for 6 months, I got paid as acting chief every day that I was here. As I've mentioned before, I have a lot of respect for a city manager, and I know that money is tough, but that's not fair. I'm gonna probably send a grievance in the union. I'm gonna get paid that money. I try to work with folks, but they don't wanna do that. They just want me to do things for free, and that's not right, so. Thank you.
Moving on to Parks and Recreation.
We had a meeting August 5th, in the committee. We discussed, several items at the park, that should be addressed. And we also actually walked through the park and the river trail system, just to highlight the areas which, need some, exposure or some correction out there. Security issues, I believe city manager already addressed that, the cameras are gonna be secured for the park.
No, I'm sorry, that was for City Hall.
City Hall, okay. The camera system that is out there, there's actually two or three of the cameras are actually busted right now, so. There's also, a lot of the weeds and the blades of the ball diamonds are all overweeded at this point, overgrown. So it just depends what we wanna do as a council again. To move some money into that account, to secure labor to keep the park up and visually good. Once again, the streets, we discussed the streets too, the blight on the streets, and the blight, the weeds growing up in the sidewalks along the main corridors, for example. So I know discussing with Don too, through the DDA, we had offered the city funds to assist in keeping the park up, $10,000 a year for that. And, if those funds are, we discussed it at our DDA meeting again, available to the city, upon approval of the DDA board again, but I know it's getting late in the season at this point.
Correct.
But
And, so I believe Brian and I had talked about that, instead of this time bringing on a seasonal worker and hiring just a contractor, someone that does lawns for the living. Unfortunately, we got their bid the day after your DDA meeting, Brian. I do need to clarify, cause he didn't say if that was for this, like the rest of this season, like you said, which is short right now, or if it would be, I'm thinking short season. It was $550. So like I say, I don't know if that's for the season per mow, I need a little more clarification on that. But we did get a quote in on that, and then just to let council know, Brian, and it is an eyesore, talked about the small pavilion on the west side. There are a lot of shingles missing. Our guys have purchased the shingles. It's just, again, priorities, and it sounds bad, but there's always, what their plan is to try and get that done before winter gets here.
I don't know if the other committee members want to bring up anything.
Any questions for Chairperson Salah? Okay. Moving on to Downtown Development Authority.
Yeah, we had a meeting on the 15th. Thursday the 15th, discussions were continuing with the DDA, continuing the extension of the DDA was the main discussion. Also appointment of officers, and renewal of a couple of terms on there, which I'll bring that to motion here shortly. And we did, like I said, we did discuss the recreation side of that and bringing up ideas for development plan and goals for coming year for the DDA. So as far as actions I need to present to council, this is once again the board members for 2019-2020. The DDA board recommended the extension of terms to 2023. They are 4-year terms on the DDA board for John Aspinall of Town and Country, and Matt Hickey of Piece of Dude Downtown to extend their terms to 2023. So I'll make that in the form of a motion.
support that John Aspinall and Matt Hickey, receive 4-year extensions for their DDA terms.
And also, they're also common members on the Brownsville redevelopment authority also.
Any discussion?
Now, isn't DD up for vote in 2020?
Yeah, but you still need to have your board members until their new contract would be extended or not extended. You still need board members.
Right, correct, even though Brian's saying like 23, if they were to disband, that would be a moot point. It's just this way, if it is, they're
That's what I
covered.
was
Nope,
kinda
that's a good question. Just a point of clarification.
Okay, being no more discussion, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Laporte,
Yes.
Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor,
Yes.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yep.
Mayor Brazo.
Yeah, yes.
I have nothing else, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on to ordinances.
I have nothing to report.
Although I would like to have that scheduled for next meeting, that with the removal or however we want to do the ordinances that we discussed beforehand, the ones that we've written down to take care
Yeah,
for
if Gerald
next
wants to meet with me, we can go over that.
week. Okay, great, wonderful. I'd like to get that taken care of.
Just let me know what works for you.
Okay. Fire and NBA report. So we were gonna have a special meeting, it got canceled. I guess Chief took care of, obviously, he already covered everything, or Sergeant Spencer has. He will be going to, I guess, training. Gerald, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Alright. No, at this time, there's no unfinished business. New business, acceptance of Mike Dijak. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Dijak.
enough.
Okay, wow.
Is it DJ?
Dijak.
Dijak. I
Dijak.
just, proposal for City of Pinconning assessing services effective September 1st.
I'd make a motion to accept Mike Dijak, proposed for City of Pinconning assessing service effective September 1st, 2019.
No support.
So we have a motion and support for the acceptance of Mike Dijak.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Proposal for City of Pinconning assessing services effective September 1st, 2019. Any discussion? Being none, roll call vote.
Any questions? Anybody?
What relation to Hilda are you?
Excuse me?
What relation to Hilda are you?
Son?
Okay, he's a good guy.
Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor,
Yes.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yes.
Councilmember Laporte,
Yes.
Mayor Brazo.
Yes. And the motion is carried, and thank you, Mike. Thank you for
Mike.
coming tonight.
Thank you, not a problem.
Okay, moving on to B, I requested goals by everybody, now I got 4 of them so far, and there's 3 to go, I think, and I know Ann said, she was going to hand me some tomorrow, but the reason I did this is because we seem off direction. We need to have direction for our city manager going forward, and we need to communicate better. I think communication is always probably the biggest problem whenever doing anything. We all lack those skills sometimes, and we can always do better. And that's my big thing is, this is a start that we can look at what our goals all are. And I'm gonna have I'm gonna have copies made up of all our goals, so everybody can see. Hopefully by next week, Monday, everybody will have those, so we can look through, and I'm gonna take some of the few.
I'm just giving, cause I just jotted mine down kinda half.
Well, it's gonna be very important that the next meeting, we set those goals for her. And also, I'm gonna set new chair people. The November's our upcoming year, but next meeting, you will know your new roles. starting for November, when the new, that's when we set them last
By
time.
charter, yes.
So, I'm gonna set those next meeting to give us all new, you know, roles of leadership. I think we all need to take some role of leadership on, and change some of them. So, on that, do we have any more discussion on that? How does everybody feel? No, you guys all have yours, so I can, cause I'd like to get them out to everybody to see, cause I'm gonna take the top ones, we're gonna go over and make sure she knows what her role is also, moving forward, you know, going forward, that way we're all on the same page and we're working like a well-oiled machine, okay? Alright. C, adoption of charitable property tax exemptions and application form for assessor use.
And Mike left. So, again, I think it just gets to our tax exempt entities, as to whether they need to file or not. Paul has in there, any organization entering the municipality desiring a charitable tax exemption must complete the paperwork. And what this is, I think, is getting to is just to make sure that we're giving tax exemption to viable or, you know, legal per se
Right.
entities, not
Excuse me.
people or organizations just because I don't know how to put that in words. I
Right. He'll take
apologize.
the forms and make the
Because
changes.
again, remember this has an impact on us. Because if they purchase land, and as we've talked about this before, we already in the city have a good percentage of land that is tax exempt. That hurts us financially. We have, I believe, 4, if not 5 churches that own quite a bit of property that are tax exempt. We have city property, as Brian said, we talked about at F&P, that is tax exempt. We have the school, which, I mean, again, I'm not saying that these shouldn't be, I'm just saying the percentage, you know, we have the school that owns a lot of property. We can't continue at this rate. And I think the city needs to control who's going to be granted tax exemptions.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So with this policy, they'd have to do this annually?
That I'm not clear on, to be honest, we would have to ask. I believe, let me look and see.
You know, the tax exempt properties would have to fill this out, that's a question.
Yeah, it's all tax,
Including the churches?
I don't think the churches, because they're by state, like the church and school, those, we can't.
So you're talking about clubs out there that may have had tax exempt status up to this point.
Right. And, you know, I don't want to name any names. I could give you examples, but I don't want to do any disparage to those groups by using them as an example.
I'll make a motion to adopt the charitable property tax exemption, the applications form for assessor's use.
No support.
We have a motion and support for adoption of the charitable property tax exemptions application form for assessor use. Any discussion? Being none, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Batchor,
Yes.
Councilmember Coyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibson,
Yeah.
Councilmember Laporte,
Yes.
Councilmember Saha,
Yes.
Mayor Brazo.
Yes. Public comment? Yes, sir.
Chris Keeney, Whispering Pines, and wow, I didn't think I was gonna have anything to say tonight.
But, you know, poor city manager over here, how many hats you got on now?
I believe I'm up to about 8.
8 for one person, and so you have, what, 40 hours a week that you work? So, you know, she's got all this stuff she's gotta pay attention to, and it's like, well, I'll use like, Space Invaders, video game for instance. You know, you do pretty good with one, goes a little faster, then you get more, and suddenly, so she's gotta keep plugging holes, and, you know, you guys vote this stuff in, and like Officer Spencer, you vote this stuff in, and then they have to pay for the consequences, you vote and go home. You know, and that's not right to them, and she has always been good to work with. There's one hole that I told her about that she couldn't find, and I came in and said, well, why don't we meet and make an appointment, and I'll show you. And she says, yeah. So everything that I brought up to her, she has taken care of. And the thing is, I told her too, I said, there's so much grant money out there. Cause I used to do a little, research grants. And my goodness, but her, she says, well, I don't have time to do all that. So you're putting yourself and me at risk. You got one police officer who sounds like he's about ready to quit and go give up. And as it is, he's got no backup. You know, they're trained that, hey, you always have backup. His backup's in Bay City, Bay County. So if something major happens to where you have a riot or a bar brawl, he can't go in there and take care of himself. Or you have breaking and entering. You know, somebody sneak out the back, hey, he can't go chase him. I mean, come on, you guys gotta get together here and help your guys out. Help your people. I mean, I even offered, I said, probably with approval of city council, I will come in, whether it's paid or unpaid, set me up a computer, and I will research grants for it, for nothing, because I have to do 20 hours volunteer service anyway. So why not help the city? And if she needs approval for you to do that, hey, I'm willing to help out with that. Because like I said, I see a problem, hey, if I can be a solution, I'm willing to help out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Carol Knight, I'm a resident at 424 Liberty Street. I agree with Chris. Dawn has too many hats now. It's good to explore different things, like Brian brought it to the group and everything. However, she told you she can't do any more. There's no more hours in the day. Apparently you want something for nothing though, because I didn't hear any mention of her getting compensated for all this extra work. I don't know. Unless you weren't concerned about Dawn, you were more concerned about somebody you maybe don't like, I don't know, but I'm just very disappointed. It's very disappointing. The other thing I did want to mention is it's good that you adopted that form for the charitable, but they have to, and it's too bad Mike didn't stick around because I'm real fuzzy on it. I've read it.
Also,
but,
right,
yeah.
same here.
But if they are using the property for what their charitable, how they got their charitable group name, then you're gonna have to give them that contribution anyway. You're kind of bound by that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that you have a form, but I don't know that you're really gonna cut out too many.
Right.
It's not gonna help you with tax money, so. But that's all I have today.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Carol.
Any more public comment?
I'm not gonna stand. A couple months ago, I told the council that if we made a mistake, in fact, in the paper, we would be correcting it. Just wanted to tell you there was a mistake in last week's paper. There will be a full correction on the front page of this week's paper. I stated in the article that the steelworkers filed a grievance against Mr. Gibson for intimidation and threatening employees. That was incorrect. It was the Brotherhood of Teamsters that filed that grievance against Mr. Gibson, and there will be a correction in this week's paper. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
We have a motion and support to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned.